All right. So, you know, the funny thing is I was showing my son my slideshow and he said that is dusty, which I guess isn't a good thing. It means it's pretty boring. So, it's pretty boring. I like to think that I'm the more, the supposed to be the entertainment part, not the words. And it's my first one, so I'm hoping in about 3 years when I look back, I'll be like, "Whoa, that was dusty." So, as you know, the title, I Need Your Help to Revolutionize Education with Solution-Focused B.E.A.R.S. I thought I should have renamed it Let's Revolutionize Education with Solution-Focused B.E.A.R.S, not just I don't need your help, we all need each other's help. So if we can do that, that would be wonderful. Joe Pendleton, I have a EDS in school psychology and I work at Wildwood Elementary in Matamidi, Minnesota. It's a K2 building. Got my degree from River Falls, and I've been working in schools for 20 years. School psychologist, now a SEL behavior specialist. Spend time outside or outdoors with my wife and three boys. Spend most of my time at an 8. Last night I was at a 6, so that was kind of a bummer, but I'm back. And then, disclaimer, I am not a professional speaker. I talk a lot, but I am not a professional speaker. I talked to my father-in-law last weekend and I was like, "Yep, I got this. It's about 30 minutes." He's like, "And I think you can talk that long. Can you stay on topic?" Which kind of gets us. Let's go slides. All right, my best hope realized. That's why in my little caption for this, I had that picture of me. I won 2021 U.S. Cube National Champion. Whether you know what cube is or not, it's a Swedish yard game. You throw wooden dowels at wooden blocks. But for many years, I wanted to win nationals, and I finally did. So that's a best hope realized. And I was in a magazine for it, a little local thing. I was going to say more, but here's the whole point, right? The problem, time for solutions. Let's embrace solution-focused B.E.A.R.S. We always have a fork in the road. We can pick problems and we can pick solutions. And a lot of this B.E.A.R.S takes place in the wild woods. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but we also often get stuck focusing on what went wrong, and we need to shift that. Like as an educational community, I would say. So let's do it right now. Solution-focused B.E.A.R.S can transform the way we see schools, families, and communities, and you get more of what you look for. So I look for solutions. Right, here's a little slide about shifting our focus. It tells you what B.E.A.R.S is: best hopes, exceptions, alternate futures, resource talk, and scaling. I'd like to thank Elliot Connie for that because I have a diamond right across my desk, and I kept sketching like what would be kid friendly, what would be school friendly, and I thought, I added B.E.A.R.S. The benefits: it empowers students as change agents. Oh no! All right, I'm back. When the smart board does something, I lose a little bit. Building self-esteem, resilience, encouraging a powerful or positive, hopeful outlook, promoting collaboration, shared responsibility leads to practical, sustained solutions. As we know in schools, a lot of times we spend our time analyzing the problem. We talk about function of behavior. A lot of data leads to feeling like negativity and helplessness. Like, what are we going to do? May overlook some strengths and resources, and that's what I like about the resource talk portion of that is it really works to bring those out. A lot of times when I'm in a meeting or I ask for strengths, on an eval report or in any other document, you get like smiles or good friend, right? And then the list of problems is huge, so we need to make a bigger list of strengths so we know what to bring in the future. Can be time consuming and not lead to solutions. I mean, that's been the last 20 years of my life has been a lot of like, all right, we talked about it, but we didn't really do anything about it. So that's why we need to shift. I got some inspiration here. Doug Anderson was my practicum supervisor just down the road here. He was who really introduced me to solution-focused brief counseling. Linda Metcalf, obviously, solution-focused school unlimited, just became a certified solution-focused school counselor. Is that it? I think that's what it is. I
That's
already
it.
mentioned Elliot Connie a little bit and Adam Froer in his books, YouTube videos. That diamond was inspiration for the Bears. And then my wife, Nicole, because she wanted me to include her as an inspiration. So thanks, sweetie. I'm sure you'll watch this sometime. She wanted to watch, and I was like, no way, you can't watch. I need to just do it. So 4 years into my career, a student came down to my office and he was scared of bees. He hadn't been outside at school all year. He doesn't go outside at home unless he's riding his bike because he's faster than the bees on his bike. But otherwise, he wouldn't go out for recess, FIAD. And I went through the solution focused steps with him. And the biggest one was the miracle question. You know, and I snapped my fingers. I still use that one to this day. When I snap my fingers and you leave my office, when you go out to recess today, what will you be doing? And I had him paint that picture of what he would be doing. I'll be on the swings. I'll be running and playing with my friends. I'll be on the slide. And I was like, all right, so I'll see you out there. And I went out there and he came bursting through the doors. And of course, there were bees by me at the time. So he came running up to be so excited. And I'm like, no, go and play. And he was outside for the rest of the year. So I was like, wow, this is amazing. It can happen that quickly. You know, doesn't always, but it can. So that's where I was, dabbling. I like to say sprinkling in solution focus. Come on. Uh-oh. Okay, good. So but then I didn't intend to use AI, even when I started this or wrote the proposal using AI. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So I started experimenting. And so, like Sandy, I was at Matt's also, and I was like, oh, we both are talking about AI, but um, you know, I I'm not stealing from him. We both just are doing it. I liked his poems and the way he's doing it with posters. I gotta use that. So I started experimenting, and this is really the biggest thing that I came up with was this little bear, Scout F Bears, solution focused SF Bears as a hope detective. I was in probably the third meeting with a first grader, and I was asking him the questions. And finally, I was like, "Well, what clues would tell me that or tell you that your day is better?" And I was like, clues. Yes, a detective, a hope detective. So that was the origin of Scout F Bears. And then I was like, you know what? This could really help with a bunch of kids. So I started using that in my groups and individually, or even when kids are, having a tough time at recess. And that's a lot of what I'll talk about today. Just that he's not looking for berries and honey pots. He's looking to help kids uncover their best hopes. And the kids really love him because I can show the picture. Like this is how it started. I'd just be like, oh, Scout F Bears, wants to come to your classroom later. And what would he see you doing that would tell him that it's a little bit better, just even a little bit? And they'd be like, oh, he's cute. And I was like, okay, now we got something here. So I think I already talked about that aha moment. So I was like SF Bears, and then I went with Scout because it means to gather information. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. Perfect. Let's go. It's a family affair. I already talked about my wife once, but that's her drawing of Scout F Bears. And then my son Wyatt wanted to get in on the act. So he drew a picture of him with with a magnifying glass, because what good detective doesn't have a magnifying glass?
Mhm.
Oh, by the way, anybody can talk at any time. Just so you know. The setting of most of the stories are the wild woods, a vibrant and whimsical forest where animals live and work together, inspired by the school I work at, Wildwood. What a perfect name for a school. I'm hoping that they can merge as one. Scout uses his Bears approach. Again, it's best hopes, exceptions, alternate future, resource talk, and scaling. Again, put those things in. AI came up with these icons, which I now use in different ways, including in a board game that I'm working on right now, and then a journal and some other things, just so the icons are kid friendly. It reminders to teachers of what it means. And I went with the magnifying glass because we're looking for clues for your best hopes. Exceptions, because I've always said to parents, take note of times when it hasn't happened as much, even just a little bit. A map makes sense because it's alternate. I need to get from where I am to where I want to be. And then resource talk, I wear a key around my neck as kind of a reminder for myself to remember my strengths, talents, and supports. So I went with the key. And then scaling, of course, it has to be a ruler. So with that, I started dabbling in AI, as I said. And actually, I'm going to go ahead one. And I came up with a story. And kind of like Matt said last night, like it's all about the prompts that you give AI. So you have to figure out, what do I need to say to get what I want? And all the stories involve Scout F bears. And I gave him a little friend, little Gus, a squirrel with a short tail, because everyone needs a sidekick. And they go through the wild woods helping other animals find their best hopes. So, for best hopes, each story has kind of a Scout F bears, a little Gus discuss how their best hopes. So this is so the story can be on one side of the page. This can be on the other side. So each story is a one-page document. So the teachers can go through it with their class and then have this as guiding, where it talks about here's explicitly where we find hope and the definition, some techniques and examples. So there we have Scout and Little Gus, and that one he helped what did he help in that one? Someone. Oh, no, that was just them realizing that his best hope is to help other people find their best hope. Of course, little Gus, the squirrel, wanted to find acorns because then he could be safe during the winter. I'm not going to go through all of it, but there's Pip, the little field mouse, and normally he would go across some rocks, but he couldn't get there because the river's swollen this year. And they thought, well, when was the time that you were able to, that this has already happened and you were able to get across the river to the better clover? And he was like, well, a couple of years ago, I went down the river and there was a log and I crossed it there. So they're helping generate, what are some ideas of what could happen? So then we got the definition, identifying the times when a student problem is not as much of a problem or a little bit less, and highlighting successes. Here's some ideas for exceptions working with teachers in the meetings. Like I said, we call our meetings solutions meetings, but we really talk about problems mostly. So it's trying to embed more of this. And this has been what I found the most helpful is when I can ask, when has it already happened a little bit? And then when they say, well, with this kid, never, I can say, well, what about with another student that had a similar difficulty or a similar concern? And then the whole, like, just close your eyes and recall a time. I do a lot of close your eyes, imagine, picture it type of things. Just realize when it's even happened a little bit, and then going after that to the what did you do to make it happen? So using it with the kids, but then also the teachers. So you got the community working together. What will you do to make it happen again? When it does happen again, what will you notice? What do your students notice? What will your team notice? We have 9 teachers on each grade level team. So that's where the team one really counts because they meet a lot. So it'll be like, what will they notice about you? What will be different? And of course, what else, as many times as you need to ask it. In the beginning, I was like, I can't ask what else that many times. And now it just is natural. And it's just, what else? What else? And, the kids love it. Here we got alternate future. This is about a moose. So I started asking the kids, like, if you could be any animal in a story, what would you want to be? And what would the problem be? So this was Paul the moose, and he couldn't swim across the river like his brothers. So that was his problem. So we talked about, how can we get there? What would be different if you were able to do that? And what are your best hopes? Suppose you were able to do that. And then kind of working from there about step by step, how do we get to that? So he's in the story, he starts wading through the water with the help of Scout and Gus, little Gus. Always have to say the little part. Little Gus is inspired by a squirrel that comes outside of my window and steals the bird feed. So all of this is, inspired by real life. So here's my my attempt of not being dusty. I put a little graphic here, but mapping our journey from where we are to where we want to be. I have the picture because like where we're at in the present is like a picture. It is what it is, but we get to paint our future. We get to create our future through our vision, through our imagining. Resource talk, of course, it has to be a beaver. And Barry, he taps into his support system when his dad tells him, he learns from his dad. What can you do when your dam gets wiped out by a flood? And then little Gus is like, well, you also are really strong and you have sharp teeth. So they start thinking about what are your strengths, talents, what supports do you have, what can you do? And trying to go through that. So the example there for student, on the card is a student might recognize that they have strong organizational skills, which can help them manage time and improve their academic performance. This is probably my favorite one. This is Fiona the raccoon, and it's about scaling. And the story's all about a berry festival, and the best berries are at the top of the tree, and Fiona's scared to climb that high. So it's all about what are the small steps you can take to get higher on up the tree to reach the best berries. So where are you at right now on a scale of 1 to 10? When you're trying to get to your best hopes. And then later I have a question about scaling because I do need your help. So I got to keep rolling. So there's time for you to help me with this. So with this, I am building a board game, and it's really based on scaling, but I will use those icons that stand for all the different areas. But this is AI generated, but I do like the idea of it winding around the river, and where if you do land on the river, you might fall back to another bend in the river, like from an 8 down to a 6. And then what do you do when that happens? So there's a lot of options with that. I'm sure there will be, depending on the age of the kid, there will be card decks or dice or definitely the little clue tokens. And then there's also a role-playing game with a similar theme. It's all in the Wild Woods because that works for me, but if another place works for you, that's fantastic too. Let's see, didn't get there. All right. So, of course, what's important? Curricular integration. We got to make sure that this fits into the system already. Here we have responsive classroom, and at the beginning of the year, they talk about hopes and dreams already. Unfortunately, a lot of times they talk about that at the beginning of the year, and then they do not review it. They don't update it. They don't move forward. So putting this in place where we can do more of that, where we can make sure that we are systematically looking at our hopes and dreams and changing them as we can. We use wit and wisdom with a lot of noticing and wondering language, which is fantastic for this. Working with the art teacher, like I showed my wife and my sons already, like about can we get an art lesson where we're all creating our own scout? We all need a little hope detective that could come with us. Collaborating with the music teacher, we're going to come up with the best hope song. We were hoping to get it done by the end of the year, but things got busy, so we're hoping to kick off next year with the best hope song. And then the stories are going to be read in media. So just making sure that it kind of wraps around the entire thing. Originally, I had a whole bunch of ideas, and there will be slides in a little bit about those. And then I thought, no, what can I control? What is my locus of control starts in this office, and then it spreads out. And if the specialists are the ones on board first, that'll be great. Because like I said, we have 27 teachers, and it's hard to get 27 teachers on the same page. So we're going to start with me and the specialists. School-wide applications, classroom lessons, start off, by asking, what are your best hopes for the day? This year we did do a What Went Well Wednesday at my school. And right before this, a teacher stopped me and she's like, I love that What Went Well Wednesday. She's like, I use that with my kids at home all the time. So it's if we could have a best hopes Monday, a What Went Well Wednesday, and then a something Friday. Again, up for ideas on that. When students, so this just happened, this conflict resolution yesterday. A couple kids were hitting each other on the playground, and I talked to them about, what would you like it to be like on the playground from, starting tomorrow? And what would that look like? And they were both painting pictures and we were going to alternate days. And the one was like, you know what? How about the other kid plays soccer 2 days? I play one, the other one plays two because he has more friends. His friends play soccer and I can do other things. And that was for that kid in particular to say that, I was like, whoa. And so then talking about the resources and strengths, and we didn't do the scaling on that one because again, with the bears, I don't use all five. I use whichever ones work best for which kids and depending on the time. Scaling is used almost every time though. Almost every time. Like just today, I walked up to a kid and he was like 8. I'm like, okay. I saw another kid came in today I haven't seen in a month. And I was like, hey, I just happened to see him. I'm like, so where are you? He's like, still a 10. And I'm like, well, that's probably why I haven't seen you in a month. And I was like, except on the playground and when I pop in, but that's why I love the scaling piece of it. Pretty simple. I didn't mention this during the scaling slide, but like I know we've talked sometimes about, what's the best scale for young kids, and can they understand 1 to 10? And I'm at a K2 building, and we always use 1 to 10. It's what we use for some other things, so it kind of fits in with that too. And I usually go 1, the worst it could be, 10, the best it could be, and then I go 1, 2, 3. Like, is it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? I like to give them all the numbers because otherwise they get stuck on 1 or 10. So that's the biggest thing about the younger ages. They need more concrete um, parts of that. Parent engagement's like one of the goal setting and personal development. Of course, we want to look at best hopes and scaling and resource talk for kids. But parent engagement, I was going to say that's one of the biggest ones that has opened it up when I talk to parents because I'm talking about best hopes instead of problems. Like the conversations get so much better and they're just so much easier to have. And afterwards, you feel like you've come up with a better plan and the parents are on board than in the past when it's like, here's what we're going to do. Here's what the school does. When this happens, we do this. Instead, it's like collaborative and then they have their ownership and then it works. School-wide initiatives, again, having that best hopes board says to start the year. I think we're going to do that to end the year. I forget what it was, like countdown to best hopes or something like that was an idea that I heard. And then having the school assemblies continue to talk about best hopes and exceptions. Like I said, best hopes, awesome with the kids, exceptions for the teachers in meetings. That's where they tend to remember what they forgot. Like, oh, yeah, I have had a kid like this before, and I did figure out what to do. And that's where they become the expert again, instead of what are you going to do about it? And then just painting that picture of an alternate future and scaling it. Some ways that teachers can do it. I don't even know what time is it. All right, we're good. Interactive storytelling. That's basically what I'm doing in my office here. We have collaborative activities where we talk about exceptions. That works really good with a group of kids because then they all start to notice, oh, wait, it has been better before. Instead of getting focused on what's happening now. And then some visual tools. I just came up these AI when I couldn't sleep last night, and right after I just punched these bad boys into the AI, and they came up with these type of graphics. So it is pretty easy. This one's on Copilot. At school, I usually use Gemini because it's what our district has. But just having some graphics out there. We got reflective practices, role playing. I like that where you can role play as the hope detective. You are the hope detective. How will you help others find their best hopes? And love that one. As I already said, integrating with curriculum. Here's a story. I just put it in the slideshow because, it'll be there on there. But this one I did just today. I was working with a kid for about 2 hours, high energy, a lot going on. And then he came in here to eat lunch and I was like, okay, we need to come up with a story. And like, this isn't technically a social story, it will become one, but it's just about, when it's Mike the hummingbird or woodpecker. But it was like, yep, and it's about following direction, listening, following directions, and getting your work done. And when you do that, you get to stay in class because class is where it's at. So like embedding the language that we use into a story for kids to have. Oh, wow, I got rid of one slide. We're not ready for questions and answers yet. Um, but so like I've used it in my groups. I brought kids down. A teacher was like, "Hey, of these four kids, three of them need to work on this, this, and this." And like in real time, I sat down at my smartboard and we punched out a story. What was going on in the classroom, what they could do when they get back to class. That was more of a best hopes for their teacher, but they collaborated in it. So then it became a teacher and student best hope piece. And then they were like, "Hey, Mr. Joe, can you send that to my teacher? I wanted to read it to everybody during snack time." So just that type of piece where the kids are excited about the stories. Like I see them and they're like, "So did you like?" I pulled a kid down today. He's like, "Did you get that story ready?" And I'm like, "Well, actually, since we met last, now I do it with you in real time." And it is all about the prompting. Like today, I forgot to put, I want it to be a short story about a page long. So then you have to keep playing around with it until it works, until it fits. Last story, kid on the playground. He went in a mud puddle he shouldn't have, kicked his water bottle at someone, and then he slapped a kid. So I get called out. I bring him in. We call the parent. He's in the corner of my office with his hands in his ears, just wailing the whole time. So I'm like, "Well, I don't think this is going to work. So we'll talk later and we'll come up with a plan." And then she emailed me and she was like, "So what should I do? What are your suggestions, strategies?" I'm like, "I don't know your kid. So how about tomorrow I'll meet with him and then we'll come up with something." So I went out to recess. He saw me. He's like, "Mr. Joe, watch me hang on this thing." And then he had a great recess. I brought him in and we wrote a story about Andy the cat and about how Andy the cat, his best hopes were to play with his friend Frank and draw pictures with Miss B and to listen better. So following his best hopes, and then he was going to use we call it roller coaster breathing whenever he gets frustrated. So then I had that story. I shared it with his teacher and his parents, and now we all are on the same page of like, what are the things he's looking forward to at school? What are the techniques that he's going to use when he's frustrated? And that was a lot easier way to talk to parents and teachers than putting in a unilateral plan. Like, "I'm going to do this for your kid." And so far, that's been about 2 weeks, and he's had one day since that he kind of popped a little bit, but nothing physical. Um, well, that was 30 minutes. But like I said, I do need your help. So, um, any questions, comments, ideas? How do I make it better? Here's my biggest question for others. So I typically do say on a scale of 1 to 10, one being the worst it could be, 10 being the best it could be, where are you at? I've just found after 20 years of trying to come up with the right 1 in 10, I've just gone with worst it could be, best it could be. What do you think?
Hmm. I think it's tricky because it kind of depends for me on the student and what their interests are. Because sometimes it's like, okay, if like if they're obsessed with, I don't know, like apples or Minecraft or something, then you could, if you had one apple or if you had 10 apples,
Yeah,
like that kind of thing, for the little kids. But I
right.
don't,
I don't know. I've just tried to be like, what is the simplest way, unless there's a very specific 1 in 10.
yeah.
I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, little kids are, from my experience, they're very visual.
Yeah,
So it's like, something like even I've seen it done. I don't know if it was with Linda or what, but seen it done with like a ladder, because on the jungle gym there's a ladder. Or I've seen it, but you still use the numbers
Yep.
or the stairs, because depending on the school, if they go up and down stairs a lot, then they can resonate with that, or, oh, I got to go up the stairs or down the stairs to go to the locker room to change for PE or whatever, depending on the
Yep.
age.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I've used that and I'm like, is that the best thing to say? Linda, I was just saying, typically, if I go into it cold, on the scaling question, I say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst it could be, 10 being the best it could be.
Uh-huh.
Like that's my pat
Yeah,
scaling question, depending on if I have a really specific thing.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I
Is
think
that
it's
okay?
yeah. Oh, have the gist.
Because I used to, I try this and try that, and then that's the one that I felt I get the best student
Yeah, you don't want to
participation over
complicate things.
globally. What's that?
You don't want to complicate things more for
Right.
them. Unless
And then
it's
I don't have to
something
think about it.
Yeah, unless it's something they would resonate with. Like if they look at you like they don't understand it, but they use the jungle gym or whatever and go
Yep.
across the bars on the playground, then that's something that would resonate.
Yep.
And my question for you, do you use it with the whole class?
I have. So
Okay.
the biggest time I've used the scaling with the whole class is when there's a substitute teacher coming and this class hasn't been doing a great job with subs. Because then I'll meet the day before, or the 2 days before with the teacher in there. Usually the teacher's doing the note taking on a big old sheet of paper. And we talk about that. Like the last time you had a substitute, where do you think you were on a scale of 1 to 10? Worst it could be, best it could be, they say. And then it's like, well, think of a time that you were a little bit higher on that scale, when you had a sub. What were you doing then? What was different? And what are you going to do tomorrow when Mrs. Peterson's here? What would make that better? Just a little bit. Usually we shoot for 8, 9, or 10 when a sub's here. So
Yeah.
if your class was at an 8, 9, or 10, what would you be doing on those days or on that day? And then typically in the morning, I pop in and I just to like to make that connection between the sub, the kids, and me that we've done
Yeah.
this. And then it's up on the board. And then at the end of the day, or middle even if I need to, depending on the class. And then at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, where did they end up? And usually it's like, and usually it's great, because we put in the time and effort on the front end. So like,
Yeah.
oh, I go, hey, where'd you end up? Not where'd you end up, because that's a big part of it too, using the right tone. Um, so it's usually subs. I've used it in a couple other classes, but that's usually more of a global where we're talking about all of it, best hopes. When we get to where we want to be, what will it look like? What will you be doing? What will you be doing as an individual? What will you be doing as a class? What will your teacher be doing? What will she notice you doing? Like all of that language.
One of the things that Matt gave me when I did his course a couple of years ago, he designed a multi-faceted dice. And so when I have a kiddie come into my class, into my office, I get the kid to roll the dice. And so it's a random one of these questions. So then it takes off the not stigma, that's the wrong word, the frustration of trying to think about all the questions that I've got to ask or whatever. And it makes it then for the kid that they're not going through a pattern, because a lot of these kids have had so much counselling and it's like, oh God, here we go again. God,
Yeah.
she's going to ask me all these questions. So I get the kid to roll the dice. It comes up with the question, what is your best hope for today? Or, what did you do better yesterday that you're not doing? It's a whole lot
Yeah,
of questions
nice.
Matt put on them, which is really cool. And then I go into the scaling. So
Yep.
the kids always know that it's the dice is going to come first with a question that's random. And then also then the scaling comes from that. And that's the consistency part of what the kid knows is going to happen with me. And
Yep.
that takes away that fear of, and it makes it fun. Rolling the
Yeah.
dice, it's a bit like gambling,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
what question am I going to come up with her today? And that's
Yep.
just a wee little strategy that Matt showed me,
Yeah.
and that's really good.
Yeah, that's great. I Like I said, I have big plans. I must have taken out the slider. I glanced right over it, but maybe it was on the first slide. But it was basically like we're supposed to be solution focused, and I'm definitely solution scattered.
Yeah.
Because oh, there it was, first
You saw
one.
that.
Didn't even
Yeah.
mention it, but yeah, solution scattered. Because it's like, oh, this is great. It worked with this kid. Oh, let's make a role playing game. Let's make a board game. Now I'm gonna use AI for these stories. Oh, that was so good. Now I want to do the posters after
Yeah.
watching, a different one. So it's that. But I think that's what's great about it is that you can tailor it to the kids, and it's always looking positive. Like we're always looking to solutions and to a better future.
Yeah. And what works with one kid might not work with another kid,
Yeah.
and every kid's on a different journey. And so it's that relationship that you have with that kid that you know what will work today or will work for this kid long
Yep.
term or whatever. So yeah, it is about that relationship with that kiddie and knowing what's going to work.
Yeah. Well, and I like that journey, that word, right? That's that whole
Yeah.
concept of the map and where are you now and where do you want to
Mm.
be? And one of the stories that AI assisted was about like resource talk, and it was about how do you build that bridge around the river or over the river? Do you build it through some strengths of your own? Do you pull in your support system? So that's the part that I like because again, with the story generation, it can be up to the kids or the teacher, depending on which one is the one asking to start, and I can do it both ways. And then it usually, you close that loop, and that day with the teacher was like, you need to talk to these kids about this. And in the past, I'm like, no, I have what I need to do in my group. This is what I have to do. And that time I was like, yeah, let's go. Because it just fit well, and I was able to do it, and it's been helpful because, like I said, I was able to I can send these stories to the teacher, and at first they start as animals, and then sometimes I have them turn into kids in the classroom. Like today, one was about an alligator and how it cleared the path with its tail, and it did some other things, and then I was like, okay, what would this look like in the classroom? And it went into like helping other people, asking if people need help, and having a calm body, which are the things the kid really needs to work on. But we got there through first talking about an animal and a story, and then okay, what are you going to work on? So it kind of helped the kid and the teacher.
Yeah. And that's what Matt did with one of that story that he did with my boy that I mentioned yesterday. It was pictures of him and his friends. So he's a that little bit older that if I'd done it with the animals, it probably wouldn't have worked. But because it was him and his friends in the story, and there were pictures of them in the story, he could relate to that. But I've got a wee tacker who's only 6, and I could absolutely see the animals would work with him.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's that. Yeah, I'm going to give that a try, Joe. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I just realized I had you guys over on this side, so the whole time I'm looking over there when I should have put you under my camera.
Oh, it's okay.
That's all right. First timer, right?
No, didn't even notice.
So, no, like I said, I mean, the whole thing, I need your help. We need to help each other. I mean, that's the best part of this whole overall conference is just being able to pick things. Like I said, I was at Matt's thing last night and I was like, ooh, I need to get on the ones he's on to make more posters, and I'm doing more, stories, but not poems. So it's like, let's roll.
Yeah, and even just visuals of what resonates with them, like if they like dinosaurs, putting that in for them.
Yep. All good things. All right. Anything else? I'm over, but that's okay. Better than being under, right? All right. Well,
I thought yours was an hour.
no, I was just a 30-minute. It was an hour, and then I got rid of a whole bunch of things, so then I went a little fast here. You know how that goes.
I remembered seeing you with Linda's session a couple of weekends ago, and she said to you, I think, make a book.
Yeah.
Make a book.
Yes, because someone said for you to sell it on What's that thing
Yep,
on?
teachers pay teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're in conversations about putting some things out there.
Yeah. Put a pack together with your board game and a book and you
Yep.
know,
Well, and
yeah.
then I was thinking about it, and we have a book fair that comes every year, and I'm like, the thing the kids like are like the journals or the diaries that come with the padlock and a little trinket. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that'd be great if we could make Scout like a eraser, pencil eraser. And then you work them through in the journal or workbook on what are your best hopes? What are your
Yeah.
alternate future? All that.
Especially your girlies, your little girlies will love that.
Yeah. I don't know. That 5-year-old son of mine loves anything
Oh,
that has anything in it.
oh,
It's
cool.
it's a journal then, not a diary though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
All right. Well, thanks
Oh,
for
thanks, Joe.
attending. I know this was a good one. Oh, why am I still on my
Fine.
slideshow? Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. Anything else for the good of the group, as I like to say?
No, I think that's
All
good.
right. Well,
Thank
good.
you,
Well, then
Joe.
it sounds like I might see you guys next Wednesday
Yeah.
at SF
Thanks,
Connection.
Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye.